welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Accountant Showcase, bringing into light folks in the industry and their journey and experiences throughout. So for today, from the Visionary Group, we have with us Bob Lewis. Bob, thank you so much for taking time out today to speak with us. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
Okay, so we, the Visionary Group, and this is the small infomercial. We just work with CPA firms nationwide, 25 plus years. We do a lot of custom merger and acquisition work for firms. We help some firms help find a home to merge upward or to sell into. We do a lot of acquisition on the larger firm acquiring a smaller side. A lot of succession assessments these days because people are having a lot of transition issues, trying to figure out how to go from one stage to the other. Helping firms figure out how to expand their capacity, which, Chris, ties into a lot of what you actually do. The capacity is beyond just like outsourcing and recruiting. It gets into client culling and pricing and how to build out your advisory services, which really leads to the last piece is we're helping these firms really expand their advisory footprint. And Chris, when you look at the journey part of this and where the industry's at right now, we'll back up on how I got here, but industry's moving heavily into the advisory side. Many firms have gone very deep into it. Firms are entering more and more into that space. This isn't the old profession that people used to use, which is, believe it or not, Excel spreadsheets. Prior to Excel spreadsheets, there were green ledger sheets people used to fill out with papers and pencils, and it was great. But industry's progressively changed, and it's becoming very analytical and very client experience focused beyond just the basic tax and audit kind of services. My journey, Chris, is that what you're looking for next? How I got here?
Yeah, no, and I love what you said that, and that this change has happened so quickly, right? And so folks have been kind of forced into it, and whether they're loving it or hating it, it's irrelevant. They're embracing it and seeing how it could work. And so I think it's been amazing the last few years. But yeah, did you always want to be, working in the accounting industry since you were born, or tell us a little bit about that story.
So when I was 10 years old, I dreamed about being an accountant. No, I did not. Like the reality is the path to get to places changes for everybody. So going into college, when I went into college, they actually had colleges back then when I go college days. So there weren't internet searches back then. You couldn't look up universities. Everything was a library or council or whatever. So my cousin, who was about 10 years older than I am, was working for Ernst & Young, who was made at the time their youngest partner ever, much smaller firm at that time as well. But my mother goes, well, you should become an accountant because look how well your cousin's doing. Like, okay, there you go. So I go into college. I get my 4 years in. I've got a finance degree, okay, which is always just really a powerful degree, by the way, if you're going to go into accounting. Not really. So you get some accounting credits if you're going to go into accounting. Went into finance. Took a job, of course, in accounting for a small, industrial tools company. Ended up doing internal audit work in that company. God knows how that path got there. It just happened because they had needs. And apparently I could actually read and write with some proficiency. So they said, oh, let's put him into there. Moved into a high-tech company, Wang Labs at the time. Wang Labs was about a Fortune 175. People will remember who Wang Labs is. That's W-A-N-G. It was Dr. An Wang. That guy created magnetic disk memory. So remember a floppy disk used to go in PCs? He created that. Sold it to IBM for $70K, started this company and ran it to a Fortune 175 before the industry changed and it started to decline. Moved into Digital Equipment Corporation, which is another high-tech company. There I ran regional accounting departments. I had AP, I had AR, I had a region I closed off the accounting for. Shockingly underqualified to do this. A lot of learning on the fly, but I did that for quite some time. Then, and this is how journeys go, right? They said, we need somebody like you to support the sales reps in our area to go talk to the CIOs and the CFOs about change and transformation, because I got involved in a huge business process re-engineering change inside digital, how they transformed all the accounting systems. So Chris, here's a little dirty secret back then. It used to take up to 2 months for those large corporations to close their books. 2 months. The financial systems weren't possible to do it. And so, they report every month, by the way, financial. So if it takes 2 months to close,
Yeah.
figure there's a lot of adjustments that were going on, a lot of guesswork, right? That
Sure.
just wasn't that corporation. That's every business out there. So as I started moving into these large corporations, talking to the CFOs and CIOs with the sales reps who had the relationships, we'd hear the stories about how, they can't get their reporting done, they can't get their books closed. There's a lot of accruals flying all over the place, so a lot of guesswork. End of the day, all of this stuff unfolds. Here's a really good example. There's one company, I don't want to mention the name. It's a very large corporation, still in existence today. They would just buy tons of companies, like luggage companies, pizza companies, lamp companies, everything, and they've consolidated up. Now they've since changed their strategy quite a bit, but when they consolidated up, they put a black box converter between the general ledger account of the company they purchased and into their main parent hub, right? The black box wouldn't convert backwards. So when all the results would flow up and things were not in alignment with how they thought it was going to be, they had no way to drill back down to look at the numbers. So they get on the phone, they call all these companies, they ask, why is this off so much?
Yeah.
That was back then the Wild West of IBM 3090 tape-driven mainframe computers in back rooms with software that didn't work well. So I got this ingenious idea to go work for a CPA firm to help CPA firms grow, because I saw, I had the financial background. Back then, it was actually illegal to sell for a CPA firm 3 years prior before I started that. So I took a couple jobs with a couple CPA firms, then I opened up my own company, laptop in the kitchen, and here we are today, laptop in the living room. No.
Moving on.
There's quite a few of us now. Our clients are nationwide. All this M&A work we're doing, we just closed 4 deals on 12/31. We do about 20 a year. This year was slightly under. We had a couple deals that fell apart right at the end, which is okay. It's a good reason they fell apart. I'm glad they did, because it would have been bad for our clients. A lot of succession assessments now with this industry, Chris. It's changing, the aging baby boomers exiting, and there's not as much of a supply of people coming in. But I will tell you, if you're going into this industry or thinking about it, the big shift into the advisory, the data analytics, the technology, these CPA firms are not sleepy CPA firms that use, green ledger sheets and just report numbers. They're getting involved in the client's business. They're controlling it. They're looking at cyber solutions. They're helping their clients run their entire business now. And it's a slower process because you can't do that overnight. But the traditional CPA firm, that's pretty much dying. They've all been converting slowly into more of a consulting firm that does accounting as a good chunk of their product line. Mm-hmm. Chris, why do you exist? Why does Entigrity exist? I mean, why does this company, I know the role you do. I'm not trying to counterplug. By the way, the audience, I'm not trying to counterplug what Chris does, but they solve a capacity problem. Right. Not all of it, but they take pieces like compression that's going on in this industry right now with labor and allow you to expand a little bit. Like if you move into the advisory side, you become less dependent on CPAs to grow your practice. So the capacity issues begin to go a different direction. And that's where firms are heading. And it's an interesting to watch this all, Chris.
Yeah, no, that was an awesome story, especially the part where your mother said your cousin's an accountant, he's really good, why don't you become an accountant? I mean, every time I do this, the story is so different. It's never when I'm 10 years old and I'm going to be an accountant and everyone in the family is an accountant. It's never, it's rarely like that. And then to see how you've evolved and grown, and that's what this is all about. It's not just input and tax returns and season. And you're absolutely right. The today's firm is already in process or already thinking about or fully implemented this consulting and advisory. And so you have a lot of work that has to get done, right? And so you need help and folks looking for staff locally, remotely. Here in the US, it's been very, very difficult, and the seniors are doing the work and they're getting burnt out. And so, yeah, companies like yourself and Entigrity being able to assist to make you fully convert over to that advisory is it's the new norm. And I think that's awesome, one. And I think it's very important for folks to realize that this industry needs, more of accounts that are sharp and comfortable working with clients one-on-one. So I absolutely agree.
So Chris, an interesting part of this whole adventure, because I learned from a lot of really smart people. Like, I consider myself to be a average intelligence individual that has a really good receptors to hear what other people say and go, that's an interesting point. How do we make that a little bit better, or change it, or twist it, or add to it? I saw this gentleman speak once years ago, and he talked about goaling. Like, how do people set goals? And they go, you set a 5% goal. You'd say, Chris, we ought to grow integrity by 5% next year. You will do nothing different than you're doing right now. Because 5%, whatever, we'll find a way to get there, right? Then you push it to 10%. You're like, okay, let's think about it, but we'll probably still not make a lot of changes. Let's say that you wanted to grow integrity by 50% next year without changing any of your resources. Like, you had to use existing resources, the people, process, and grow by 50%. Now, when you're forced to think that way, you now are forced to think way outside the box. And crazy thoughts get down on paper. It's probably not realistic for you to grow 50% without changing any of your resources. But when you start to put these things down, these new ideas start to emerge. And all of a sudden, a new idea creates another idea, which pops into another. And that's actually how we begin to operate this company. We started years ago. After I heard that guy speak, I'm like, really smart what he's talking about, because people get passive in their goals. But when they make a really aggressive stretch goal, it gets them thinking a very different way. And we've always been operating that way since. And it's okay to fail on it. It's a crazy stretch goal. Like, if you guys set a 50% growth rate, no change in resources, and you grew by 25%, oh, that's horrible. Oh, what a horrible outcome. You hit 50% of your goal. But those things spring a lot of ideas. I think that's what this industry is going through right now. They're going through a lot of, how do we make these changes, and then how do we do it with some people who don't want to make any change? Because accountants aren't known for their high risk. They aren't known for, like, let's take a lot. Let's go to Vegas and roll it all on the dice and see what happens. That's not our typical accounting firm.
It's a mindset shift. I think the industry is going through a gigantic paradigm mindset shift, and it's amazing to see it unfold, especially on my end when I'm meeting with 5-10 new accounts a day, and the way they approach the call from 5 years ago to today, it's refreshing, right? It's not all this worry and hesitation and nervousness anymore. It's, hey, how do I do this? How do I go about do this? What's the best route to do this? And that's amazing. To right then and there, in just the last 5 years, I've seen such a mindset shift, and that helps them progress.
Well, think about what it's going to be like 5 years from now, and 5 more years after that. And if you look back, even just like 15 years ago, even the use of technology was so different. Cell phones, we got a cell phone now that can program a moon shuttle that has more computing power than when they put somebody on the moon, sitting in your hands, and we use it to chat with people. But anyway, it's just the change, and you have to kind of roll with the change. I actually, if you think about it, next time you go to a conference, you go to an event, look and see if anybody in the room doesn't have a cell phone. I think everybody, I've never met a person who doesn't have a cell phone.
Everyone, yeah.
And that's become a common norm. And what's the common norm next? We're gonna have these little chips built into our glasses with the computers, all kinds of crazy stuff you read about. But when you was a kid, you remember there's a comic strip called Dick Tracy. Really, everybody should remember that or look it up. And the big thing was he used to talk into his watch, which is now an Apple Watch.
Thing, because that just seemed like so futuristic. And now I'm like, hey Siri, remind me to get laundry in minutes.
I mean, it's not even a thing anybody would think is interesting anymore. Like, it's commonplace. So it's things change. This industry is under a lot of really interesting change. Good news is I'll tell you what, if I was a younger professional thinking about what I want to go into, I'd jump all over this accounting profession. It doesn't always appear sexy on the front cover. They make a lot of money. They get involved in so many deep client issues on anything from, mergers, acquisitions to, how to figure out, resolve a problem and pricing and it's really cool to do that. And I like that as part of that's part of what we do a lot of, and I enjoy that a lot.
When folks jump into the industry, I mean, that old cliche saying, the sky's the limit, but it's absolutely true. You get your feet wet, you work for a big four firm, or you work for a regional firm, or you work with your, local firm and get that experience, get that knowledge. And then from there, you're able to, assist the firm you're working with in their growth plans, or you now starting to have that skill set.
Yeah, it's up here.
You could become, I used an example a while back. I'm a big Knicks fan and Mets and Jets. You could be a CFO, one of those sports teams or things like that. It's not just, sitting down at a desk anymore. And so,
No.
I'm excited too with the change that's happening every single day. And so, besides being at work every day, assisting firms and bettering their, future plans and goals, what does Bob like to do for fun?
Bob used to play basketball quite a bit. He played for about 15 years up until about 3 or 4 years ago, before Bob's left knee went completely shot. By the way, I'm using myself in the third person to make fun of Bob, that we're using a Bob name. But no, I've got 3 kids. Got kids married. I own a lake house with one of them. Go up there. In fact, I was just up there over the weekend. I've got a good core set of friends. We have a good time. I'll golf on occasion. I'm horrible at it, as opposed to some of the people who golf like 19 times a week. I just bring a lot of extra balls on a golf course. Also like to fish, but again, it's like, not that great at it, but it's fun to get out in a boat, have a good time. It's all about enjoying yourself and being just having a little bit of fun. And by the way, you like your Knicks and I'm a Chicago guy, so I've got the Bears, which is, there we are. We talk about the 1985 Bears, just in case everybody's confused. This is a 2023 podcast. So that was like, coming at 30 some years ago. And then,
of course, 3. I was 3 years old in 85.
Yeah. It's like, it's a long time ago, but we're clinging on to that one in Chicago. But, hey, but we have a good time. My wife and I have been married for a long time, 30 some years, actually 37. I know the number. And my wife went to med school after we got married. So it's been an interesting ride that we've gone through. She went to medical school. So kind of cool.
I like the activities that you're doing. You're really separating yourself from work, because you can't golf. You got to be focused on it. Even if you're not that good of a player, you keep trying. Fishing, you're waiting. You're able to kind of clear your mind, think, and then when it comes in, boom, you're reacting. And I think it's just important to separate. Like my thing is going to the gym and just not on a workout, but just like jungling around, moving around, pushing weights, and just you have to separate, especially when working from home or working remotely. You can't eat, sleep, work out, everything in your house. You got to get out. You got to get outside. So I appreciate that. Any final thoughts before we wrap up today? I think we had a great conversation.
I think we're pretty good. Just keep in mind, this profession is rapidly changing. Keep an open mind. Everything doesn't work the first time. Actually, when you get back to outsourcing, that's been a journey itself, where they'll set up outsourcing and they'll do it with the cheapest firm possible, or make a bad decision as to who's going to run it internally in my organization. Like if I'm the firm, they put the wrong person in charge. Everything adapts, and you have a couple failures along the way. You keep refining, and then eventually it starts to work. And sometimes, you make a decision that what you're trying to do doesn't make sense. But certain things like the outsourcing, the advisory, those are just must do's. It's just a question of how you get there. Path may change for a few people. Appreciate the time too today, Chris. I think we have a panel coming up in BDO Alliance May. I think we got that coming up.
Traveling next week with meetings, the area meetings. I'm finally have a much more manageable schedule. So I got to finalize it, but I'll be over the next 3 weeks. There's a lot, so I may be
I'll be
bumping
in
in.
I'll be in Philly, New York, and McLean, Virginia, and Doug, my son, who runs our M&A stuff, will be handling our Chicago and Rosemont. So
Yeah,
yeah,
cool.
excellent.
Thanks a lot for doing this. And I will see you in the next few weeks, probably. All right.
I think so. Have a good weekend. All right.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.